Today's speaker is Scott Abbott. Scott is the CEO of 5-Star Franchising. Mr. Abbott has a 24-year background in marketing and entrepreneurship. He formed his first company at the age of 16 in the fishing industry, and at its inception led the company to coast-to-coast distribution in Canada, representing over 8 product lines. During his undergrad, one of his companies was awarded the Innovator of the Year award, and later, that same year, a national award for information productivity excellence. Additionally, Mr. Abbott was awarded the Entrepreneur of the Year award from the University of Manitoba while a student there. Scott's moved to Utah to complete his MBA from BYU, and that started with the launch of 5-Star Franchising, growing the business from inception to over 150 franchises in 5 countries, collectively employing over 1,000 people with system-wide sales of close to $30 million. 5-Star has been recognized almost every year for 5 years as one of the fastest-growing companies in Utah County. Recently, Mr. Abbott orchestrated the sale of the 5-Star Painting to the Dwyer Group, owned by the Riverside Company, one of the world's largest private equity firms. Presently, Scott is engaged in developing the first fully integrated business solution for home and service brands called ProNexus. ProNexus was just recently named as one of the emerging 8 companies by Utah Business Magazine and has already attracted some of America's largest home service brands to leverage this solution for hundreds of locations. Mr. Abbott's community involvement has included teaching business planning at UVU right here, serving on the board of the local chapter of Entrepreneur Organization, coaching various sports in the community, including soccer, which I just found out he's a big soccer guy, and as well as serving on various nonprofit and for-profit boards. As you can tell, Scott Abbott was raised in Winnipeg, Winnipeg, Manitoba, Canada. So, of course, he's very cool because I'm from Canada, and so that's a good thing. Can anyone tell me what a blue bomber is? Anyone here heard of a blue bomber? Okay, if you can tell Scott what a blue bomber is, after class, he and I will come up with something for you. So, blue bomber. I can't believe that. Isn't that sad that these Americans don't know what a blue bomber is? What's that? And did Google help you out on that? Of course not. Google. So Scott has 5 children: Liam, age 15, Sinead, 13, Kieran, who's 12 years old, Aneen is 8, and Colin is 5. His wife her name is Heidi. Is she here yet? She was going to come. There she is. There's Heidi. So wave your hand again. That is Scott's better 9/10 right there. So they were married 17 years ago, just celebrated their anniversary here in August. So we appreciate Heidi joining us today. Let's give a great round of applause to Scott Abbott.
Well, guys, great to see you all. So, mic's on, great. Let me go ahead and just give you a quick background on where I came from and what I've been up to. Looking forward to talking to some of you after this lecture as well about some of the pursuits I've endeavored to try and achieve. First of all, so 16 years old, I was working at McDonald's, and my dad, who was a bit of an entrepreneur and a fishing fanatic, said to me, "Scott, I'm going to help you start your first business." And so we had these fishing lures that he loved using to catch big pike up in Winnipeg, Manitoba, Canada. Who knows where Winnipeg is, by the way? Just real quick so I know. It's usually 1 out of 10. This is about 1 out of 50 here. Winnipeg is the one place on Earth that is colder than Mars. It was on the front page of the Winnipeg Free Press just a couple years ago. So it is freezing up there, which is why I live down here. So we had this little business going where I import fishing tackle from all across the United States. And then I'd sell them to different retailers all across Canada. And if you can imagine, at age 16, I was about 4'9", this short little kid. And I'd be walking into these little fishing stores, and I'd be asking to talk to the owner, and I had all these lures in my arm, and I'd be trying to convince them to buy my product. And often I'd be asked, well, you know, who's the owner? This is like child slave labor we're using here. And, well, I'm the owner, sir. I want to sell you this stuff. Well, it was scary. It was really scary. But from 16 to 20 years old, that was my business. It was the one thing I can credit that got me through school, because I flunked grade 12 the first time, because I was missing so many classes running my business that they failed me out of every class that I attended, because I had more than 15 missed classes in all those classes the first time. I flunked the second time for the exact same reason. And I walked into the principal's office after failing grade 12 twice, and I said to him, listen, I've been running this business. I had an average of B+ in all the classes, and I'd passed them all, but I just didn't have my attendance record. I said, I got to move on. He credited me with the 1/2 credit I needed as entrepreneurship, added me to the commencement speech, and said, you can now graduate. So I finally got through based on that business I had started back when I was 16. After that, and started an LDS mission, came home. I worked with my father on a very unique concept. It was this idea that fishermen want to compete. Everyone wants to compete at some level, and fishermen want to do it as well. And so I created a system over a couple years that was very statistical in nature, analyzing all the different fish that existed in North America. I did roughly 15 species, and I would figure out how hard was it to catch a rainbow trout in my backyard in Spanish Fork compared to a rainbow trout in Raymond, Alberta, and take all that statistically into a point system. So over several years, I invented this point system that would compare all these fish across the U.S. with my father, and we won Innovator of the Year award and all these things and so on. That business did not make it. It was my first business failure. Unfortunately, we brought some funding in from some investors that wanted to go a different direction, and that meant I went the other direction. So while having to make a change, I, for the very first time, began to work for the man and was employed by an accounting firm, one of the largest accounting firms in the world. They're called BDO Dunwoody. Down here, they're called BDO Seidman. It's a worldwide accounting organization. And I learned very quickly that I hated it, and I was unemployable, and if I didn't figure something out soon, I'd probably be living in a van down by the river. So, after 6 months in, I began working on this idea that I could take a painting company worldwide. And the reason why I did this is because two of my very best friends, one with whom I've known since he was 12 years old and is still a business partner today, another one since I'd known since he was 15, were both painters. They're running a small painting company in a small town, and they're trying to grow that beyond that local area. And every time they tried growing it, it failed. They would hire a sales manager in a new city. That sales manager would get things going, and just when things started taking off, he would steal all the customers and go do his own thing. And that happened over and over again. And so I'm at a friend's wedding. I'm talking with these two young gentlemen who I have a lot of respect for, and I think, I can do this. And I know how to do it. I know exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to create a system that people will be willing to pay me $40,000 for the right to operate my company in that marketplace. How many of you would buy a painting company for me for $40,000 and you got to start fresh in any marketplace? And I'm only going to give you 125,000 households. Any takers? I got one. Good. Talk to me after. So what I did is I started two businesses at one time. While working and my employer was funding my new business, I started a company called Paintworks, and I started a company called 5 Star Painting. And I ran them both simultaneous to each other. And I would create ads for 5 Star Painting, and I'd put them right up against my Paintworks ads in the yellow pages, online, and so forth. And I put tracking numbers on everything. And I wanted to find out which of my advertising methods were the most effective. Well, 5 Star Painting was, which is why it's the company I owned and ran for years. It was doing about 4 times the lead volume off of the same spends on advertising as what I was doing on Paintworks. And our style of advertising and our approach to the business was very unique. I started creating a system using Excel, very advanced tool, and created our very first version of the software. And while I'm doing this was in 2004 and 2005, someone calls me up. His name was Alan Turner. He was 6'4". He had a black belt in Kung Fu. And he says to me, "Are you guys a franchise system? Because I'm looking to buy a painting franchise. And I saw your stuff, and I love it, and I want to buy one." I had just finished what we call a franchise disclosure document in an FDD, which gives me the right to sell a franchise. It's a very regulated industry. In order to sell a franchise in any marketplace, you've got about 150 pages of paperwork. You've got to file with every state, and you've got to then give that to the person who wants to buy the business. So very cautiously, I agreed to sell this man my first franchise for $40,000 in Winnipeg, Manitoba. And then I subsequently moved to Utah to do my MBA. Now, while at BYU, it was the executive MBA, so that permitted me the ability to run my business and get it going while I was going to school. I entered a business plan competition called the Utah Entrepreneurship Challenge. So you may have heard of it. And I had this idea that we'd take this little painting company to become a big franchise system globally. And I met a man, his name was Greg Warnock. He is one of the founders of Mercado, Prelude, Gazelle, any number of deals that are out there he's done. And he was one of the judges of this competition. And he loved my passion for what I had to do and what I wanted to do and said, you know, I'm going to invest in you. In fact, I don't know if he even knew we were a painting company until after he cut the check. So Greg was our first supporter and believed in us when I had a hard time even believing in ourselves. But we began growing this small business in 2006 to eventually having, as was mentioned earlier, about $30 million in system-wide sales in about 5 countries. In fact, some of our franchisees in Brazil last year painted 3 of the World Cup stadiums for World Cup, which was really exciting and a big highlight. 5-star franchising developed a lot of technology and systems that were used to grow these franchise businesses, because it wasn't just painting. I did a number of different service-based companies, and today we still own 2 of them, one in lighting and one in bathrooms. But we sold the painting business to the Dwyer Group in January of this year, and I spun out all the technology, called it ProNexus. Pro stands for Home Service Professional, and Nexus means to connect. And I now focus on helping other service brands connect with their customers using that technology. Okay, so that brings me to where I am today. This is where I was 12 years old, very young man, a couple of years just before I started my first business. And this is me accepting an award for one of the emerging 8 at the local Utah business competition here just about a week ago. Now, with this picture up on the slide, I need a volunteer. Please, I need somebody to come up here. The man who's going to buy a franchise from me in the white shirt. I think you are the man that said you'd buy a franchise, right? Excellent. What's your name?
Taylor.
Taylor. Have we met before?
I don't believe so.
Okay. So we don't know each other?
No.
Okay. Taylor,
Yes.
we are going to do a magic trick.
Let's do it.
If any of you know this magic trick, don't tell him how it works, okay? I want him to, at least him to be surprised. What we're going to do is I'm going to take the cards, and I'm going to slide them like this, okay? And you're going to stick your finger in the deck, and you're going to pull the bottom card out.
Okay.
You're going to show it to the crowd. Nobody tell me what it is. Every time I do this trick, someone says, oh, someone in the crowd told you. No one tell me, okay? Can we do that?
Let's do it.
Okay. Okay. That's your card. Show everybody the card. Put it in your back pocket so I can't see it. This will be our test to see whether or not he can buy a franchise from me. Okay, Taylor, right?
Yes.
In order to buy a franchise from me, I need to know that we are connected mentally. So what I need you to do is I need you to draw in your mind, not in the air, in your mind, the number on that card. Start drawing it in your mind, okay? So I start to see the number. Does that look about right? Okay, so I think that was a 6. Was it 6? Okay. Next, there's a shape.
Yes, there is.
Okay, put that shape in your mind, send it to me. Okay, is that what it was? Is it a 6 of hearts? Yeah. Okay. Good job. Okay. Now, I'm going to do what I should never do. I'm going to tell you exactly how I did this trick. Before I tell you, does anyone know how I did this trick in this room? Does anybody know? I've got 1. Don't say it. 1, okay. This trick is actually really simple. Deck's rigged, okay? This is called a long and short deck. What that means is one card is longer than the next card. So that if I do this and you look in, it looks like it's a full deck of cards, but every second card is a 6 of hearts. Okay? That's how this trick works. So this guy up here is going to teach my younger self, and that's why I really thought I want to kind of put this lecture together, is letters from myself to my younger self. I want to be able to connect this guy who has learned a lot over 17 years with the younger guy, and hopefully you guys can learn something from it as well. And I'm going to try to be very authentic in terms of what I've learned in business, okay? First of all, the number one rule, it is all an illusion, okay? It's all an illusion. It's just perception in your mind. I say this because I believe today, more than ever before, we have a real problem in society. It's called social media. We've never been so connected, but yet so isolated. Right? Every time you go on my Facebook page, you'll see that picture. And you'll say, wow, that guy looks like he's got it made. Look at that nice car. I didn't win that car, by the way. They should have given it to me. They didn't give it to me. He's got an award. He's got lots of awards. He's really successful. It's all an illusion, okay? I want you to know, you really have to understand that, to understand that as you enter into business and you start looking at different magazines and watch YouTube videos of all these people that are really successful, you can start to get depressed and feel isolated and have envy. In fact, there's a study done on 750 Facebookers, and they found the more they Facebooked, the more depressed they were and the more envy they had. And why is that? Because all they're seeing is the best parts of everyone's life. When everyone's smiling and they've got their happy family, everything's working out. They don't see what goes on in building a business. They see the award and the nice car. They don't see what it took to get there. They don't see that. And they think it's really easy. And so when I first got going into business, I thought business was really easy. You go on the front page of any business magazine, there's all these young, successful people that are good looking and they have awards. And it's not that way. So, just like I taught you how that little trick worked earlier, I'm going to teach you what's really happening in business, okay? 95% fall short of meeting projections. Some of you are thinking, I've got a 5% chance. And some of you are very positive people. Call me after. I need positive people. 80% fail to see projected return on investment. 40% liquidate and lose almost everything. Okay? This is the reality of startups and small businesses. Okay? It's really hard. Now, I do want to point out, though, it doesn't have to be that way. Okay? The reason why that happens is because of, and they mentioned here, planning and having more experience around you. And I'm going to get into how you, whether you're a professional that wants to work someplace or whether you're an entrepreneur, can actually increase your chance of success. Okay, the next thing I want to share is some more dirty laundry about entrepreneurship. I tried to find the stat, and I couldn't find it. But almost all partnerships, almost startups start in a partnership. It's usually 2 buddies, 3 buddies, 4 buddies get together, they start a company, okay? And there's lots of examples of that here at UVU, people who have gone on and started a business and have done it as friends. And you'll notice 62% of startups fail due to founding team conflict. So one of the biggest reasons why a startup fails, it doesn't make it, is because the founders don't get along. And why don't they get along? Well, there's a whole list of things on here that you can read through. My idea is better than yours. Who gets to decide? Who's the boss? I work harder than you. All that kind of stuff. So one of the takeaways I had, and this is I learned this actually about 10, 15 years ago, and I wish I'd applied more of it in my own life when I was starting my companies. I was meeting with the managing partner, who was like the big head honcho of the accounting firm up in Manitoba. I was in his office. We're chatting. My job at the time was to train all these partners how to market and grow their business. That was my responsibility at this accounting firm. And so I was spending time with the managing partner, and he said to me, Scott, partnerships are sinking ships. Now, this accounting firm was one of the largest in Manitoba. It was incredibly successful. This man I was speaking to was incredibly successful. He had 26 partners, though, at that firm, and that's what he said to me. Partnerships are a sinking ship. And I think one of the biggest things is knowing that if you do start a business, you probably will start it with a friend, okay, is this right here. Split the equity 50-50 and get an equity vesting agreement. If you're going to have a partnership with somebody, make sure from the outset, in the very, very beginning of your partnership, that it's well understood that the equity you have today may not be the equity you have tomorrow. If you leave the business 3 years in, 2 years in, 4 years in, whatever it may be, there is a way for you to get out. And you can get out amicably. It's been understood and set up from the very beginning so that relationships aren't ruined in the process. Okay? Okay, next. This is a group of entrepreneurs. In fact, I have a fellow entrepreneur down here who asked me to speak here, Brian Fruit. Please stand, Brian Fruit, from Lizard Skins. Okay. Did you guys see him last week? Did he stink? No, he was awesome, wasn't he? Brian's an amazing guy. I have a lot of respect for him. Well, I joined an organization about 4.5 years ago called EO, Entrepreneur Organization. Now, I want to tell you about my experience prior to that to help you understand how critical this is, okay? Prior to EO, even though I had partners, I was solo. What I mean by that is, in my head, what's going on inside here and tumbling around in terms of thoughts, fears, excitement, all that kind of stuff, I can't share all of that with people. Why? Well, they're employed by me, so I can't tell my employees I can't make payroll. That's not a good idea, right? I can't tell my wife that we're financially maybe not going to make it because she stresses out. That's not going to help anything. We've got 5 kids, right? So entrepreneurship's a lot like being on an island. And up until this point, I actually thought that I was the only guy out there that thought like me. I really thought that. I'm like, no one understands me. No one gets me. You are walking around saying that. And I started meeting people through my travels in business that I really liked a lot, and I found out they were part of this organization. And I started looking into it. Now, I'm not the only person that figured this out. I just figured it out too late. I joined this 5 years ago. I wish I had joined this 10 years ago, okay? It's the idea of having a mastermind group, okay? There are people who are your peers that you need to spend time with. You can call it group therapy. You can call it forum. You can call it whatever you want. But once a month, you get together, and you take 4 or 5 hours, just like Bill Gates and Warren Buffett do for the past 30 years. They're in the same mastermind group. And you talk about what's happening in your life, what you're trying to achieve in your goals, your shortcomings and your things you're excelling in. Celebrating the top percent and sharing the bottom percents. Okay? This, for me, changed my perspective on business and how to cope with being an entrepreneur when you feel alone. This picture actually this happened just a few months ago. So there's my wife. Isn't she gorgeous right there? And 8 different members. We rented some exotic cars, Lamborghinis and Aston Martins, and we drove on the Autobahn from Munich to Neuschwanstein Castle. Bucket list item. Absolutely epic, right? And who do I get to share that with? Fellow entrepreneurs. We're in it together. A brotherhood. It helps a lot to have that with you. Highly recommended.
What was the name of
Entrepreneur organization. In order to join EO, you have to be doing $1 million a year and be the founder. If you're not doing $1 million a year, there's something called Accelerator that anyone can join if they have a business to get them going up to the point where they hit $1 million, and then they can join the regular chapter. Okay? Who knows what this is? Does anyone know what this? Who owns this? Is this mine? I had a hand up there.
Is it the guy that sold Minecraft?
Yeah. That is Mark's. This is what you do when you sell your company for $2.4 billion and you get 1.7 of it. This is exactly what you do. You will buy yourself a $70 million house in California and you beat out Jay-Z and Beyonce. That's what you do, right? And then the day after you buy this house, you do this. You get depressed. Has anyone followed these guys' tweets? He's tweeting out there fully like, open the kimono on how I'm feeling. He's depressed. He's isolated. He's never felt more alone. He's got $1.7 billion. He could do anything he wants. He's not happy right now. Okay, so here's my other lesson to my younger self. When you don't have any money, you feel like that's the goal because that's how you provide for your family, right? And so it can be almost all-consuming that you've got to find a way to make money, especially when you're in a startup business and you don't have any money and it's really hard and you can feel like money is the goal. And then you get money and you realize, this is what he just said here. Money never was the goal. So I'll share with you a story that happened to me when I was younger. newlywed. I had my oldest boy at the time. He was maybe 1 year old. And I was into day trading. That sounds pretty dangerous, doesn't it? But while I was doing my undergrad, I cut myself a check for my visa for $5,000. I wrote it to myself. So I borrowed $5,000 for my visa. I put it in my trading account. I started trading, day trading. And guess when I did this? 1999, when any schmuck could make a lot of money. I also did in 2000. I should have stopped in 2000. I kept doing 2001 and 2. But in that experience, something happened to me. One day, I had a really good trading day, and I added a lot of zeros to my bank account. So prior to this, I had no money. I had lots of debt. I had a mortgage on a $70,000 house, a side-by-side. We were just starting out, okay? I didn't come from any money. My parents didn't give me money to go to school. I paid for that all myself. All that stuff, it happened through me doing it. So just the very first time ever, I have all these zeros in my bank account on one day of trading. And I remember laying in my bed thinking, as I was beside my son, who was 1 year old, my wife, that nothing had changed. See, before then, I thought that money would change things, that somehow having zeros in your bank account would change something. But nothing changed. The most important things to me were my family. The money piece didn't mean anything. Now, I've had another moment like that just recently selling 5-star to the Dwyer Group. It's a $500 billion fund. It was a massive deal. I'm telling you right now, money did nothing, okay? So I wish I could have learned that earlier in life. Okay, here's a good one. I tried to find the best picture I could find of a race that looks like me. I don't know, maybe kind of. So I was, what I want to tell myself is this: focus. You've got to focus. You can do so much if you stay focused. Let me tell you about when I didn't stay focused. So I was in grade 7, so I must have been, whatever that is, 12 years old. I was a fast little guy. I was super short, but I was pretty fast. And I'm extremely competitive. There's one thing that I can tell you is I do have a problem with competition. I really like to win. And I got invited to the provincial track meet, which means all the fastest kids from all the schools come to the provincial meet and you all race. And I was doing the 1,600-meter race. And get out in the starting line, and my gut's just, churning and tingling, and I'm excited, and I can't wait to get going. The gun goes, I start racing, and I look back, and I'm on the final lap, and I'm like a half track ahead of all the kids. It's the provincial meet. And I've got kids and all these kids from my school are in the stands, and they're chanting, Abbott, Abbott, Abbott. The chant, right? And I'm like, yeah, yeah. So every single thing I've got, it doesn't matter, these guys are so far behind me. I'm just like, just cranking it to cross the finish line and win the race. And I've got one more lap to go. Oh, that sucked. I crossed, and I'm like celebrating already. And the guy who did the flag's like, dude, you got one more lap. And I'm looking back, I'm like, there is no way I can even take another step at this point. I've exhausted everything in me to get to here. And I got to run one more of those things? Oh, I fell from first. I finished 4th, out of the group. It sucked. I wasn't focused on the goal. I was not focused on what I had to do. I let the guys in the stands and the people sit there distract me on something I should not be doing. I wasn't done. In business, there are going to be so many distractions going to come at you. You're going to start your business and whatever it may be, you name it. And then there's going to be that other business idea that's over here that you should go look at doing, or over here, the shiny things will start happening, okay? And the younger self, me, I pursued shiny things and distracted and took away from the focus and power that I needed to have to be successful in the one thing I needed to be successful in. So, big piece of advice, if you're going to be in business, if you're going to be in a career, be focused on what you want to achieve, okay? Don't settle for less than that. Okay, be yourself. I think you have to be authentic. You've got to be real. And something my dad shared with me way too long. Whose dads do this to them? They tell them the same thing over and over and over again. Yeah, the guy's like, ugh. My dad's exactly the same. He would say to me, Scott, the only constant in life is change. And I'm the kind of person that when I hear something, I challenge it. I'm thinking, is that really true? Is the only constant in life change? And I'd sit there thinking about, what could be, what in my life is not changing? And I actually came up with it. There is something. It's me. I'm the only constant in life. I'm with me all the way through to the end. Everything else might change, right? So I thought, I got it. Then I realized that is like the one constant that you've got to change. You have to reinvent yourself, and you have to change yourself regularly. And you've got to find ways to shake things up. You've got to find ways to get out of your comfort zone. So I'm going to give you some examples of this. I learned this too late. I wish I had learned this earlier. But a few years ago, I ran my first triathlon. A few years ago, I began saying, I'm going to start exercising self-discipline over myself, even though I don't have to, on certain things, random things. I haven't drank pop for 3.5 years. I've not had one glass of pop. One day I woke up, I said, that's it. I'm not drinking pop. Why? Well, because I want to know that I can do that. I stopped eating French fries 2 years ago. Deep fried, not going to eat that. In November, I didn't have a choice. I no longer eat anything with gluten in it because I'm celiac now, I found out. So it could be in the little things, and it can be in the big things, right? By this time, I've kind of recognized some of the things I don't do well, and so I find ways to help get me doing what I need to do well. An example of that is I don't recognize people's successes enough. I don't spend enough time praising people for what they do. And so I put little notes in my calendar that tell me, Scott, when you go home, bring flowers and a card and say something nice to your wife and your kids. I literally have to tell myself to do that. Because if I don't do that, I won't do it. Okay, stuff like that. Okay. Invest in yourself. Warren Buffett. Investing in yourself is the best thing you can do. Anything that improves your own talents. Nobody can tax it or take it away from you. They can run up huge deficits, and the dollar can become worth far less. You can have all kinds of things happen, but if you've got talent yourself and you've maximized your talent, you've got a tremendous asset that can return tenfold. Okay, I'll tell you a quick story. So I'm day trading. I'm investing in companies. I'm making this money. I'm a young kid. I'm a young punk at that, for sure. Definitely thought I knew a lot more than I actually did. And there's this fellow that I met who was a successful business person. And I was talking about stocks, any stock tips for me. What are you buying? I'm buying this. What are you buying? And how's your return? All that kind of stuff like that. And he says to me, I don't invest in the stock market. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Everyone invests in the stock market. You make tons of money. What's your problem? He was like 20 years older than I was at the time. He said, I invest in myself. Why would I give my money to some company on the stock market to turn that into more money for me when I can give that money to me and make money with it? I'm like, right? Shut me up real quick. So that's actually why I started 5-Star and how I was able to do that. I started investing in myself. Okay, this is me about a week and a half ago. I'm smiling, but I want you to know I almost died. Who here has done the Tough Mudder? Any Tough Mudders? Spartans? No? Okay. Well, here's the thing I want to tell myself right now, 20 years ago. Start doing endurance races. Keep doing endurance races. And I'll tell you why. They're hard. These are really hard things. So I flew up just this last weekend to Edmonton, Alberta, to go run 12 miles in 40-degree Fahrenheit weather, in 1 to 2 feet of mud the entire time. And randomly they have these obstacles that you want to kill yourself over. One of them was the Arctic enema. You jump into like 0-degree water filled with ice, and you have to swim underneath. It's just, anyways, go online and check it out. It's brutal. It was so hard. It's exhausting. But there's something that happens when you do stuff like this. So you can go to the gym and work out and get buff. Jason, stand up. Do it. Jason is one of my team members. Go ahead, flex from Jason. Do it. Jason is huge. Okay? Yeah, give him a round of applause for Jason. Jason's been with us for 5 years now. He's Mr. Buff. He goes to the gym like crazy. Okay, it's great. But one thing I found when it comes to endurance races is you start to test a muscle that you can't test when you're working out. And I'll give you a short story of this. My son, Liam, he's in cross country now. He's 15 years old. A couple years ago, I coached him in soccer for like 7 years. And I would run with him to help get him kind of conditioned. And so this one time, I was training for my first triathlon, and I'm pushing Liam, and I said, we're going to run 6 miles today. He'd never run 6 miles in his entire life, okay? We're out there running, and he's about the 5th mile. He like grabs me, he says, Dad, I can't run anymore. I said, good. This is exactly what I wanted. Now we keep running. And he's like, what are you talking about? He's like 13 years old, right? I'm like, Liam, this is exactly why we're out here. We have to take you to the limit, and then we have to make you keep going further than that. You've got to test will. You need to practice willpower. Because being an entrepreneur or being in a career or going to school, moments in time will occur when you've got to dig in deep. And if you don't have a reservoir, if you've never built that reservoir, you're not going to make it. Because you're going to say, it's just too hard, I'm going to quit. And that's exactly when you've got to say, no, I'm not going to quit, I'm going to keep going. Okay? I'm going to end with this. I'm going to answer questions, and then we'll settle up there. So what this is it's called Everest. It's about a 22, 23-foot wall. You'll notice there's a lot of mud. In our case, because it had been raining the entire time on the race, this was like a slough, okay? And you see this guy right here? He's about to face plant. You know why? There's mud all over him. This thing it's a wall, okay? He's going to put his foot right there, and his face is going to hit there. That's what's going to happen. And this is exactly what it is like being an entrepreneur. And your face hits the wall a bunch of times, okay? There's so many pieces of this thing that are so deep in terms of entrepreneurship that it'd take me time to explain it all, but I'll try. First of all, the entrepreneur looks at this wall and goes, yes, I'm going to climb that wall. It's impossible. I learned something about myself that whenever things got really easy, I checked out. The second it got really, really hard, I get really excited. Like, okay, now this is really hard. Now I'm really excited. Okay? The other thing is, you see all these guys up here? Entrepreneurs are some of the best people I've ever known in my life. Because these are guys who have run the gauntlet, who have climbed the walls, who are sitting at the top of that wall, cheering you on, and when you face plant the second and third and the fourth time and you're finally ready to listen, they'll tell you, hey, dude, there's this rope that's hanging right here. Grab this. Put your foot on this. We'll help get you over. They are there to help. If you are going to get into business for yourself and be an entrepreneur, what you can know is that there are tons of people up here that are waiting to help you and want to help you. And if you can't find them, you can call me. I'm an entrepreneur. At least I claim to be. I'd be glad to spend time with you at a lunch or whatever it is to talk to you about business and give you any tips. So that's the end of my formal presentation. I'll answer any questions, but I want you to know that whether you are going to be an entrepreneur or whether you are going to be an architect or whatever it is you're going to be, one thing I've always maintained is just be the best at it. Whatever it is you're going to do, it doesn't really matter what it is. Be the best at it. Because we've already learned earlier that you don't become an entrepreneur to get money. Okay, I could show you 7 or 8 tweets from Mark Person from Minecraft about him going on for like ever about how depressed he is. But he's got $1.7 billion. So clearly it's not about the money. Okay, so whatever it is you decide to do, make sure you do something you love, and then be the best at it. Okay, thank you.
Time for questions?
Yeah, questions, please. Yes, sir.
So there's a lot of painting franchises, and I know that your goal is obviously to work 100% and be the best one of them, but what did you do to make a paint franchise so unique that you had investors lining up before they knew what it was? Like, obviously you have charisma, but did you do something that you feel was unique to
So are you asking me how I convinced someone to invest in us when we didn't have anything?
Or just how you grew it to be a huge multinational
Yeah.
painting company?
Well, I'll step back to first how I convinced someone to invest in us, because that's really the gateway that we made into, being successful, right? Because you do need to have some money to grow a business, at least accelerated the way that we wanted to do. There's a saying that I've heard a couple times: passion before projections. Okay, you can spend all the time you want in Excel sheets and creating documents and nice business plans. I actually taught the entrepreneurship business plan class here a few years ago for fun. I've done 5 business plan competitions. I've won first in 4 of them. So I love this stuff, but I want to tell you right now that why did Greg Warnock invest in me? Well, it was passion, okay? I believed through and through that I was going to pull it off. And he saw that and said, yeah, I can get behind that, okay? Next thing is, take it to the next level is, once you raise some of that money or you fund it through your friends and family, sometimes they're fools, just depends. When that happens, how do you get to the next step? Well, I called 1,000 painters myself, all across the U.S., and I would document what would happen in every interaction to figure out what was wrong with the marketplace. How was the painting industry broken? And after doing all of that, I figured out all the problems that existed in the painting industry. And so I went to work creating systems and solutions and processes and tools that anybody who had never been in the painting business could use to be successful. And success breeds success. So if my thesis was correct and everything I planned on doing worked, I'd have successful franchisees, and then people see that and then they want to buy more. So that's really how it happened, right? I'm going to say there also was a little bit of luck. Okay, I started in 2005. Had I started in 2009, I probably wouldn't be here right now. I started in 2005. The market was good. I got enough runway so that when 2009 hit, we actually had our best growth years during the recession because people couldn't find jobs, so they want to buy your own business. Right? Home maintenance, you still spend money on your biggest asset, it's your house. If it's breaking, you'll fix it. We were in the right place.
So would you find it more, oh man, I just went like blank in my head. Do you find it more important to brand yourself or what you're selling, like your company? Because it sounds like you use more of like your charismatic charm and your expertise to try and get people to invest in you more than just your company.
That's a great question, and I know there's a lot of like branding movements for people that are happening now. They do their LinkedIn thing, they do their Instagram thing, their Facebook thing, and for me personally, I have a distaste for that in general. I mean, I think you have to be professional, but I'm not a big fan of building, I would call superstar companies that rely upon that one individual. I built 5-Star from the beginning knowing that I needed to build a company that would not need me. Okay, the way that company would become the most valuable is if someone could come in and buy it, and I could walk away, and the company would just keep going, and it didn't matter if Scott wasn't around any longer. So that's how I built it. Now, obviously, you still have to get that person, that angel, or someone that believes in you to invest in you. I don't think you have to brand build for that. I think investors get, if you're a startup company, you're just getting going, you haven't had time to brand build. You haven't built anything yet. This is you're on level 1 of your career. But they do sense authenticity, sincerity. They can see a lot of those values that you have will come out as you communicate, and I think you can earn trust from those to buy into you. So hopefully that answers your question. Yes, sir.
How do you provide value to your franchises?
So the question is, how do I provide value to our franchisees? That's probably a good question in the context of I was selling a painting company, right? And you're probably all thinking, well, like, painting, how hard can it be? To give you an idea, 70% roughly of all the deal flow to our franchisees come from stuff that we do for them. Okay, so we managed all their online marketing efforts. We managed all their lead handling. So any call that ever came in, we handled that call, and we scheduled that appointment for an in-home sale for that person. Okay, we gave them technology that gave them all the estimating tools they needed to price out the jobs, and then gave them the tools to know what to buy for product because it was all part of the software solution. So we definitely built, a system that was larger than what we had, because we believe that one day we'd be big enough to support the system we built. I don't know if that makes sense or not to you, but we had high costs at the beginning, right, and not enough money coming in. And we needed equity partners to help us fund that business such that we could make it to the point where we finally had enough franchisees to support what we had built for them. Does that make sense? Question here?
I may just not understand franchise correctly, but you mentioned you had franchisees in Brazil, for example.
Yes.
They work with the World Cup. Do you have core operations in Brazil or other countries like that, or is it just the franchisees you cooperate from Brazil?
Yeah, so the question is, how does international franchising work, right? So here in the United States, I have an individual franchise agreement with an individual. Is it Tyler? Taylor, sorry. Taylor's going to buy a franchise from me, right? I'm going to give him a contract. He'll sign it. He gives me a check for $40,000. Now, we have the relationship. He pays me a royalty, it's called, roughly 5%, 6% of everything he earns, he'll pay me in exchange for the brand and the support and the systems that he can be successful with, okay? Internationally, it's different. It's called master franchising. So in that case, we've got people who want to be me, but in another country, whether it be the UK, Brazil, Mexico. And so they pay me for the right to buy Brazil, and then they take all the tools that we've created in the United States, and they bring it over to Brazil, translate them, and then use those same tools to find franchisees themselves that I never speak to. So I never deal with those individual franchisees. I only deal with the master franchise. And then we have a split. So effectively, whatever they collect and they bring in, they give me a percentage of all that in return for my support and systems. So it introduces a layer that doesn't exist when you do domestic markets. Yes, sir. Blue shirt.
So it seems like ideas are a dime a dozen. And aside from jumping in with bold feet, what are some skills necessary in order to test your idea and get the ball rolling?
So the question was, what are some skills you need to get the ball rolling, right? What do you need to do to get things started? And yes, ideas are a dime a dozen, and execution is everything, right? In speaking to this point, there are different stages of this, right? So you kind of look at my story and how I told the story. You'll notice that when I started 5 Star Painting, I did it as a thesis. Like I said, hey, if I'm going to do a painting company, what would it look like? And I ran an experiment that didn't cost a lot of money, frankly. I'd spend money on advertising, and I got customers. And I tracked everything intensely to figure out if I had something that was successful, something the market wanted. And then if that was the case, after I'd nailed it, I could start to scale it, right? Now, there's a lot of things that go into that between starting that idea to scaling a business. There's tons of pieces. And I'd say the number one thing that I would say an entrepreneur needs is mental grit. It's endurance. It's commitment. It's being all in. It's all of that. Because if you don't have that, you're just going to give up. And you may just stop doing what you could have turned something into something great. So you definitely have to focus on that. But in getting things going, it's just, you got to start experimenting somewhere. Someone's going to be willing to pay for your product or service, right? If you can't figure out who's going to pay for your product or service, it's probably something you shouldn't do, because no one's going to pay for it. Yes, sir.
So kind of a follow-up, sorry. So it seems like kind of the tech and analytics backend that you built was like really what gave value to the brand and what made people want to buy into it more and the support that you offered. But from your whole presentation, it kind of sounds like even from the beginning when you were 16, you were doing kind of like intensive analytics on what you were trying to do to get a better picture, some like data mining and getting all of these points to kind of assimilate something and figure it out. Is that just something that came naturally to you, or did you take some classes and how to actually like figure out what you needed to know or what information you needed to get from people to make yourself successful?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I mean, so the question is, how did I figure out how to do what I did? What taught me that? Now, mentors, my father was a mentor. Okay, he helped me get my first business going and set me on that path. My father is not an analytic by any means. Okay, my father is an amazing communicator, a visionary. He's not an analytic. I went to school. I did my undergrad in finance and marketing. The stuff that happens in school, you are forced to do these really crappy exercises that you ask yourself, why the heck am I doing this? How's it going to help me in life? And you realize that a lot of that stuff that you're doing there actually does apply later on in business. So almost all my Excel skills in terms of how to analyze stuff and figure stuff out came from going to school, frankly, because I didn't have any other background before that. And then in terms of, how did I know to do testing and track everything properly? I mean, I definitely say it definitely feels natural. I mean, it seemed pretty obvious to me that's how you would go about doing it. Like before you spend a ton of money on something, you should probably figure out if it's going to work or not. So that definitely did come naturally, but how, do I go through and analyze all the data? Those tools came from school, I'd say.
Good questions. Let's give Scott a round of applause.